Good morning. So we have sort of an interesting set of scriptures this Sunday. It kind of conjures up in my mind like how funny it is that on some Sundays the church gives you, three, obviously Old Testament, New Testament, and then the gospel, of which there could be and has been volumes of literature written on it, teaching, preaching, and then other Sundays you get stuff where you're like, it's just this little snapshot of much larger stories. And how does it all fit together? And so that's kind of what we have this Sunday. But if you put them all together, I think God kind of answers a human question in all three of these from heaven's view of what this life is actually about. Like what we're doing here. And the question itself really mimics the timeline of how it's been asked over salvation history. So let me explain real quick. You've got Job, which I don't know about you, but hands down, in my opinion, is one of the darkest and, for that matter, strangest stories of salvation history. A man that goes from total prosperity to literally absolute and utter desolation because the devil wanted to test his actual commitment to God, wanted to overthrow him, show God that the man that was considered the most just man on earth, actually there was no just man at all. Okay? Oddly enough, everyone, God permits it. Grants it to the devil. And he loses everything. We're not just talking about like his business, right? Okay? The thousands of, he's got all these different types of animals I've never heard of, but let's just use the Campbells to begin with, right? That would have been bad enough. And then the storm that destroys his home. The vandals that come in and take all his property. But he lost all of his children to death. The only thing he retained through it all was his wife. Even his physical health was taken from him. And after the devil proves unsuccessful, in a vision of God, like all of this is totally clear to him that God has the power to do that to him if he wishes. And as he sees the larger array of salvation and humanity and our relationship with the divine, he just simply says, I will never ask the question again as to what you're doing. Now, in a certain sense, that's kind of the human story, right? On a micro-personal level throughout our lives, over and over again, we find ourselves, a lot of the times, finally arriving to where we want to be. And then something happens, or something goes wrong, and maybe we feel like God actually has allowed this, and he's not on our team. And we ask the same questions that Job is asking throughout this entire ordeal that he goes in. And maybe sometimes these things are actually inflicted on us by the devil, who really believes he can overthrow the just. And so the just begin to look like the damned. And the evil of the world, as the Psalms will say so many times, begin to look like the favored. While the ones who are really faithful seem to have the lower hand in everything. And so his words become ours. Hear it again. Is not life's man a drudgery? He's nothing more than a slave. Where's God? All I've been is assigned months and months of misery. Does the Most High even hear? And then his last line is where many of us have been. Shall I ever see happiness again? Now that's some pretty dark stuff. But I'm pretty sure every single human being has been there to one degree or another throughout our lives. And at the basis of that human experience is the question, what is living this life about if we are going to be subjected to pain and suffering? Which is what Job is asking over and over and over and over again. And he gets no answer. Not until the very end. Which I suppose that end answer can almost be like summed up in our retrospective discernment of life, right? When we get to be older and we look back and we say, you know what? Some of those things actually were good for me. Or the very things that I never dreamed in a million years that I was going to make it through or we were going to make it through. We did. How? I don't know, but in some mysterious way, God was there. And that's the story of human life as we know it from the Old Testament perspective, which is just a synopsis of every single experience, most of them bad, that we have to live throughout our lives in this fallen world. Until we get to Jesus. And I don't think we say enough about this because, sometimes the faith is so complex, and other times it just can be reduced to very, very simple maxims. And Paul is, the Lord today too is touching into it, but Paul really gets it, right? He's picking up this question without even knowing it. You have to understand that this man was a Pharisee. He was totally versed in the law, prophets, what they had experienced, what, Israel was waiting for, what they had been through. There was supposed to be this dawning of an age to come in which the Messiah would finally liberate them from all of this pain and suffering. But that's not what the Messiah came for, and he got it figured out when he met him. What is he supposed to be doing? He's supposed to be preaching the good news. What's the good news? That we are freed from this life. I know it sounds cliche, but life is about being saved. And it's not just about we're going to live this life and then we're going to be saved, and okay, that great day is coming in the future, but then God's going to do a bunch of wonderful fuzzy things for me now. And to his credit, he's made life a lot better since Jesus has come. If you think about all of the beautiful things we have in education, medicine, architecture, politics, civil society, it's only now that we start kicking him out that we're wrecking everything like we always do. But what Paul has figured out is what Jesus' life proclaimed in every action that he had. This life is not about this life. As a matter of fact, this life is to be totally abandoned to the degree that you can within your vocation, because we need to get the heck out of here. This life is getting out of this life. And this is what Jesus is showing us in this real kind of microcosm synopsis of his ministry in this gospel today. He's preaching, he's teaching, he's healing, he's praying. He's not sticking around anywhere. The moment that one mission is done, he's off to the next. Why? Because he came for this reason. He says he's not sitting around saying, well, you know what? I did pretty well in Capernaum. Let's go down to Jerusalem. I'm going to get myself a home down there. Maybe some lakefront property on the Sea of Galilee so I can do my vacations in the summer there. And I'm really going to build up this ministry so I got a good life. Yeah, we'll get to as many people as we can in my time, as I see fit. It's about my family. Want to take care of my mom. Make sure my dad has a nice tomb. No. Once he starts, it is an absolute rescue mission, everyone. The sole meaning of his life is to save ours and to get us out of here, all the way to his cross and resurrection. And once it's done, as the lead high commanding emperor, he then passes this down to us. As the saying goes, he made us without us, but he won't save us without us. So there's the meaning of life in 5 minutes. But it's true. And I want you to seriously take a look at it. It's not to say that you got to abandon everything that's good or family or any of that. Of course, you have your responsibilities, but it's when we start getting locked down into the world as if this is all that there is. That not only is the pain and suffering overwhelming because there is no hope, but our focus is totally misplaced. And we get attached to all of these things that mean nothing. Each and every one of us has a desire for life unending in our hearts. But from the moment of our conception, we have been sentenced to death. Do we realize that? We have been sentenced to death. And there is not one of us that can escape it, but we live like it's never going to happen. A sentence that demands a reckoning for how we lived and what we used our span of life for. And really, it's a sentence that's a blessing. that allows us out of the disaster that we're in. Imagine if you couldn't get out of here. Do you really want to live this life forever? Imagine a bunch of skeletons walking around in the streets with their souls still attached to them. And so, my dear people, when you look into your life, the years of choices that you have made, is the meaning of your desires, decisions, and purposes all about getting you and everyone else to heaven? Is your focus on the mission of getting out of here into the eternal destiny that God has made you for? Or does your heart revolve around something else? Or many other things? Maybe the something or things that really don't matter at all. Remember, you got one life and one shot, one chance for it all. No coming back, no second chances, no redos. Every day you lived up until right now is gone. Your choices have been made. Who and what do you really serve at the center of your heart? And if it is not God, why are you wasting your time?